Good evening, one and all. We welcome you to the International Webinar Series on Holistic Health, Well-being and Sustainable Development 2022 on occasion of World Social Work Month. World Health Month 2022, World Press Freedom Month 2022 and World Environment Month 2022. Commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 75 years of independence in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute and Centers for Art, Sciences and Wellbeing. Welcome you all once again to the International Webinar Series. Before we start our session, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः
The blessings of Almighty. We shall continue to today's session. Today, we are commemorating and celebrating World Oceans Day. So let's have a very short video and let's get into details.
For as long as humanity has existed on this planet, we have depended on the ocean for sustenance, transportation, tradition, survival. But over time, our relationship with the sea has grown increasingly demanding. Humanity's progress has led to mounting pressures, and our effect on the ocean has become more and more pronounced. All the while, the ocean has continued to sustain us and quietly carrying the weight of our actions.
But we can see now in its dire state the reality of what we've done. And so, the onus is on us, individually and collectively, to work together, to listen and to share our knowledge, to bridge barriers and to collaborate, to restore the ocean's vibrancy and to bring it new life.
Join us on June 8th for United Nations World Oceans Day as we come together to shed light on and celebrate solutions, science, community, youth leadership, private sector engagement, and government collaboration, and to ignite collective action to revitalize the ocean and all it sustains.
Up to 20 million tons of plastic goes into the ocean every year. That's as much as 3 kilograms per person each year. Plastics make up roughly half of each person's contribution to ocean pollution. Fertilizers, manure, and untreated sewage pollute the ocean at a rate of 1.4 kilograms per person per year. This causes hypoxia or dead zones in the ocean, killing off marine wildlife. Waste oil from vehicles and machines enters the ocean at a rate of 180 grams per person every year. And other pollutants, like mercury, are introduced to the ocean in small but devastating amounts. But this is not inevitable. We can reduce pollution by rethinking and modifying the way we produce and consume. We can reverse this trend and help reclaim the ocean for its rightful owners.
How can we know the current status, trends, and likely futures of our coral reefs with certainty? Prior to 1998, the global average hard coral cover on the world's coral reefs was high and stable. But a single mass coral bleaching event killed 8% of the world's coral. Coral cover recovered during the next decade until a succession of large-scale bleaching events killed 14% of the world's coral. Coral reefs simply hadn't the time between bleaching events to recover. As a consequence, the global average cover of algae on the world's coral reefs has increased by 20%. Algal dominance reduces the ability of corals and the marine life they support to re-establish themselves. It's time to step up our efforts to protect and restore our coral reefs. To help communities, businesses, and governments conserve and manage our vital coral reefs, the Global Coral Reef Monitoring Network has released a new report examining the status and trends of the world's coral reefs. Several hundred scientists and organizations contributed to this report, which is based on a global dataset of almost 2 million observations from over 12,000 sites in 73 countries. Now, in the first global report since 2008, you can discover the status, trends, and likely futures of your coral reefs to help you make a positive difference. To learn more and read the report, visit www.gcrmn.net.
So with this short introduction, the kind of impact that is being created by the human beings and human activities, you can see the amount of pollution that is being created and the kind of damage that is being done to the oceans. We are filling up oceans with our pollutants that is impacting the climate. So let's look into the history of World Ocean Day. The pretext, the world oceans, why oceans matter? The world oceans, their temperature, chemistry, currents, and life drive global systems that make the earth habitable for humankind. Our rainwater, drinking water, weather, climate, coastlines, much of our food, and even the oxygen in the air we breathe are all ultimately provided and regulated by the seas and oceans. Throughout history, oceans and seas have been vital contexts for the trade and transportation. So careful management of these essential global resources is a key feature of a sustainable future. However, at the current time, there is a continuous deterioration of coastal waters owing to the pollution and ocean acidification, which has an adverse effect on the functioning of ecosystems and biodiversity. This is also negatively impacting small scale fisheries. Marine protected areas need to be effectively managed and well sourced, well resourced, and regulations need to be put in place to reduce overfishing, marine pollution, and ocean acidification. So, for all these reasons, it was necessary to create awareness through an observance. So, this is why by Resolution 63 by 111 of 5th December 2008, the UN General Assembly designated 8th June as World Oceans Day. The concept of World Oceans Day was first proposed in 1992 at the summit in Rio de as a way to celebrate our world's shared ocean and our personal connection to the sea, as well as to raise awareness about the crucial role the ocean plays in our lives and the important ways people can help protect it. Raise awareness about the role of United Nations and international law can play in the sustainable development and use the oceans for their living and non-living resources. The UN Division for Ocean Affairs and the Law of the Sea is actively coordinating different activities for World Ocean Day. So UNESCO's Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission (IOC) sponsors the World Ocean Network, which has since 2022 has been instrumental in building support for ocean awareness events on 8th June. Along with UNESCO, other UN agencies work to protect marine and coastal ecosystems to avoid significant adverse impacts. The United Nations Environment Programme, as a specialized agency, oversees environmental issues, and FAO strengthens global governance and the managerial and technical capabilities of the members and leads consensus building towards improved conservation and utilization of aquatic resources. UNDP manages biodiversity and human development projects, and the International Maritime Organization is responsible for the safety and security of shipping and the prevention of marine and atmospheric pollution by ships. So that's how the World Ocean Day came into existence, and as conveyed by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, it is time to realize that to achieve the sustainable development goals and the objectives of the Paris Agreement on climate change, we urgently need collective action to revitalize the ocean. That means finding a new balance in our relationship with the marine environment. So that this year, that is World Ocean Day 2022 theme is collective action to revitalize the ocean. As the ocean covers 70% of the planet, it is our life source supporting the humanity, sustenance, and that of every organism on Earth. The ocean produces at least 50% of the planet's oxygen. It is a home to most Earth's biodiversity and is a main source of protein for more than a billion people around the world. Not to mention, the ocean is key to our economy, with an estimated 40 million people being employed by the ocean-based industries by 2030. Even all its benefits, the ocean is now in need of support. 90% of big fish populations depleted and 50% of the coral reefs destroyed. We are taking more from the ocean that can be replenished. So we need to work together to create a new balance with the ocean that no longer depletes its bounty, but instead restores its vibrancy and brings its new life. So revitalization collective action for the ocean is a theme for the World Oceans Day 2022, a year framed by the UN Decade of Ocean Science and the celebration of the United Nations Ocean Conference 2 years after being cancelled because of the pandemic. So last 2 years it was virtual celebrations due to pandemic, and now we have moved to the physical and virtual mode of celebrations across the world. Now, as we know that World Oceans Day reminds everyone of the major role the oceans have in everyday life. They are the lungs of our planet and a major source of food and medicine and a critical part of the biosphere. So now the purpose of this day is to inform the public of the impact of human actions on the ocean, develop a worldwide movement of citizens of the ocean, and mobilize and unite the world's population on a project for the sustainable management of the world's oceans. So this year, United Nations is hosting a hybrid celebration of the event on 8th June 2020 in person at the United Nations headquarters in New York to be broadcasted live. It will highlight the theme of 2022, that is revitalization, collective action for the ocean. Now let's look into interesting facts. What's in the ocean? The interesting facts about the oceans. Coral reefs occupy less than 1% of the ocean floor. Coral reefs occupy less than 1% of the ocean floor. Yet they are home to more than 25% of the marine land. Human activity and a warming planet are rapidly degrading these precious and fragile ecosystems. The status of coral reefs of the world, we have seen the short video, is a report by the Coral Reef Monitoring Network, that is GCRMN. In short, a network of International Coral Reef Initiative (ICRI). Its findings show that between 2009 and 2018, there was a progressive loss about 19% of the coral from the world's coral reefs, primarily caused by recurring large-scale bleaching events. In all, about 11,700 square miles, which is more than all coral currently living in Australia's coral reefs, were lost. The report paints a picture of four abundance, more frequently bleaching, and increasing amounts of algae, which is a sign of declining reef health. However, the report also reveals the incredible ability of coral reefs to recover when they are not disturbed by the local and global threats. Both findings should motivate swift action. While coral reefs remain mostly hidden from the sight, their health must be at the forefront of environmental effects and decision-making process. So, what's in the report? It is the first of its kind in 30 years. Examines this world's coral reefs over the last 40 years, representing the work of more than 300 scientists from the globe scientific community. It is founded on a global data set comprised of almost 2 million observations from more than 12,000 sites in 73 countries across 10 ECRML regions. So, goals on the brink. Hidden below the ocean surface exist the textured and colorful landscapes of the coral reef. These dynamic underwater cities support up to 500 different species of hard coral and are home to more than 25% of all marine life. Reefs grow over thousands of years thanks to millions of tiny individual coral polyps and that secrete calcium carbonate exoskeletons to form colonies of hard coral that are building blocks of reefs. Soft corals bend and sway among the craggy mountains of the hard corals, providing additional homes for fish, snails, and other marine creatures. Reefs deal with life. In fact, they harbor the highest biodiversity of any ecosystem globally, making them one of the most biologically complex and valuable ecosystems on the planet. These vibrant ecosystems exist throughout the tropics and support their invaluable ecosystem services. However, corals are facing an existential crisis due to climate change and a range of local threats. And yes, so coral reefs extreme susceptibility to warnings. Coral reefs extreme susceptibility to warming seas make them one of the most vulnerable ecosystems to climate change. Higher ocean temperatures and ocean heat waves are the main triggers of coral stress and bleaching. When waters get too warm for corals release their colorful microalgae turning a skeletal vine. Some corals glow by naturally producing a protective layer of neon pigments before they bleach. So if bleaching events are prolonged or happen too frequently, with not enough time to recover in between, significant coral mortality can occur, sealing the fate of coral reefs. Bleaching can be thought as of ocean's version of canary in the coral mine, since it demonstrates coral sensitivity to dangerous and deadly conditions. According to GCRMN Status of Coral Reefs of the World 2020 report, there has been a steady decrease in the hard coral since 2012. The worst impacts have occurred in South Asia, Australia, the Pacific East Asia, the Western Indian Ocean, the Gulf, and the Gulf of Oman. Since 2010, the amount of algae on the world's coral reefs has increased by about 20%, mirroring the decreases in the amount of hard coral over this period. A shift from coral to algae-dominated reefs reduces the architectural complexity and structural integrity of these habitats. As a consequence, there are less biodiverse and provide few goods and services to humans. The process is apparent in the time lapse as the corals bleach and algae take over. So, United Nations Environment Program 2020 projections of future coral bleaching report says that the global bleaching events may become the norm over the coming decades due to climate change. The report estimates that unless we rapidly reduce carbon emissions, all of the world's reefs will bleach by end of century. By 2034, severe bleaching is expected to occur annually, at which point recovery becomes inconceivable unless corals can adapt to the higher temperatures. So corals aren't the only species at risk in our warming world. 1 million species of planets and animals face extinction in the coming decades, placing human well-being and survival at risk, says the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. Corals, however, have shown the most rapid increase in the extinction of all the species assessed by the Global Biodiversity Outlook. The combined impacts of ocean acidification, warmer sea temperatures, and local stressors such as overfishing, pollution, unsustainable tourism, and poor coastal management are combining in a perfect storm to push these sensitive ecosystems to be a tipping point. So, despite these gloomy assessments, all hope is not lost for the coral reefs. They are remarkably resilient and can recover in the absence of large-scale difference. After the 1998 mass coral bleaching event, hard coral cover rebounded to pre-1998 levels. In a decade, in 2019, despite increasingly frequent bleaching events, the amount of coral on the world's reef increased by 2%. Scientists are also identifying pockets of coral habitats that are more resilient to climate change. Such pockets have been identified and found in the reefs of coast of countries such as Kenya, Tanzania, Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia, and India. Finding and incorporating coral safe havens or refugia into conservation plans is vital for ensuring a future for coral reefs as we work to halt and reverse the current threats. So, we halt and reverse ocean warming through global cooperation. We can give coral reefs a chance to come back from the brink. It will, however, take nothing less than ambitious, immediate, and well-funded climate and ocean action to save world's coral reefs. So, why we need to care? As already discussed, coral reefs are priceless and their importance can be overestimated. While they occupy less than 1% of the ocean floor, corals are the foundation for many coastal communities, providing people with good protection from storms, life-saving medicines, and livelihoods from tourism and fishing. Coral reefs contribute around US 36 billion to the global tourism industry annually. In all, more than 1 billion people benefit directly from coral reefs and many more from indirect benefit. The Mesoamerican reefs lies within the Caspian Sea and touches the coasts of Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras. It contains the largest barrier reef in the Western Hemisphere, stretching more than 1,100 kilometers from the northern tip of Yucatan Peninsula down through the Haldari Bay Islands. The Coral Triangle is made up of network of reefs in Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, and Solomon Islands. The economic benefits of the coral reefs grow to dwindle depending on their relative health. Restoring corals could unlock tens of billions of dollars in economic value, says the 2018 Coral Relief Economy Report from UNE, the Prince of Wales International Sustainable Unit, the International Coral Reef Initiative, and UCOS. The report found that the tourism, coastal development, and commercial fisheries that rely on coral reefs annually provide US 6.2 billion in value in Mesoamerica and US 13.9 billion in value in coral triangle. If these reefs continue declining over the next decade, their annual value will plummet by 50% in Mesoamerica and 16% in the coral triangle. However, These reefs could yield US $8.7 billion annually in Mesoamerica and US 16.5 billion annually in the Coral Triangle if they are revived by 2030. It's not just economics, but beyond economics, the value of healthy reefs extends far beyond economics. Healthy coral reefs are the first line of defense for millions of coastal habitats inhabitants globally. They reduce wave energy as the barriers to storms, prevent catastrophic erosion, and stave off flooding, particularly in small island states and atoll nations. Coral reefs are considered the rainforests of the ocean and the medicine cabinets of the 21st century. In the future, coral reefs could represent an increasingly important source of medicines for various diseases, including cancer, nutritional supplements, and of other commercial products. In fact, the prospect of finding a new drug in the sea, especially among the coral reef species, may be 300 to 400 times more likely than isolating one form from a terrestrial ecosystem. So, if you ever have been swimming, snorkeling, or diving in the ocean, or just gazed at the ocean while barefoot in the sand, you know many aspects of the ocean can't be quantified except in terms of tranquility and wonder. But time is running out to take action for our ocean and to save world's coral reefs. Science can help us save corals. This year, development and traditions needed on ecosystem-based campaigns are designed to help reinforce these advancement and the balance between right, overfilled tools that spurred the healing of ozone layer, while the rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines and can reverse the decline of ocean and coral reefs. Science is also informed UCRML the status of coral reefs of the world 2020 report, which shows that in 2019 the global average hard coral cover on the world's coral reefs was 29.5% compared to 32.3% in 1970. Coral cover is a measure of the percentage of coral reefs that is covered by being hard. But the coral cover varies from region to region, and the coral reefs in the Pacific have an average almost as twice as much coral as those in the Atlantic. The ocean covers 90% of the earth, yet we know little about the ocean that lies and what lies beneath its surface. What we do know is that tackling coral reef degradation requires all hands-on-deck approach, ambitious and coordinated efforts by government, business, and people around the world to prevent, reverse, and the worst impacts of environmental decline. The transfer include energy, water, food, of land and oceans become sustainable. This the UN making for the inconvenience, there is some work problem too. So, I mean, it's not stable, so you might experience some loss in audio in between. So, thank you for So let's look into various pollutants or marine debris, how they are affecting our ecosystem and especially oceans. Anthropogenic, anthropogenic pollution is a major threat to the marine life with the negative effects related not only to chemical contamination from substances such as heavy metals, nutrients, and hydrocarbons, but also to the marine debris. So our oceans are increasingly bearing the brunt of direct and indirect impacts from human activities. A wide range of threats such as increasing acidification, coral bleaching, toxins and chemical pollution, nutrient overloading and fisheries depletion, including many others, are undermining the ocean's ability to sustain ecological functions. So marine debris is a part of this phenomenon. This represents a significant cause for concern. Although much of this growing threat to biodiversity and human health is easily preventable with solutions readily available. So look into various sources and its impact on ecosystems and economies and possible options and solutions. The marine litter and proposed solutions. What is marine debris? Marine debris is any persistent, manufactured, or processed solid material discarded, disposed, or abandoned in the marine and coastal environment. So it consists of items that have been made or used by the people and deliberately discarded or unintentionally lost in the marine environment, including transport of these materials to the ocean by rivers, drainage, civil systems, or by wind. So it encompasses a wide range of materials. Most items fall into relatively small number of material types such as glass, metal, plastic. Plastic items are the most abundant type of materials on a global scale. Plastic is also the most frequently reported material in encounters with the debris and marine organisms. So, marine debris commonly stems from shoreline and recreational activities, ocean, waterway activities, related activities, and dumping at sea. So, man-made items of debris are now found in marine habitats throughout the world, from poles to the equator, from shorelines to estuaries, to remote areas of high seas, and from sea surface to the ocean floor. Some of the most common items are plastic, polystyrene pieces, cloth, nets, cotton swabs, and food wrappers. So plastic items consistently rank top among the most abundant type of marine global scale. So disposal and accumulation in the marine environment is one of the fastest growing trends for the world oceans health. So more than 7 million tons of litter enter the oceans. Adverse impacts of litter on the marine environment is not negligible. Although disposal of solid waste at sea was prohibited in 1988, more and more reports indicate that even more secluded environments such as polar regions and deep ocean floor are no longer exempt from the contamination with litter. So, what are the various factors affecting debris accumulation? The geographical distribution of marine debris is strongly influenced by hydrodynamics, geomorphology, and human factors. Moreover, it is notable temporal, particularly seasonal, variation with the tendency for accumulation and concentration along coastal and particular geographical areas. Since plastics are floating materials, surface water current determines the quantity of plastic particles available on the beaches. For the past 40 years, large items of plastic debris have been frequently recorded in the habitats from the poles to the equator. Smaller fragments, that is microplastics, and a defined threat to the environment have received far less attention. Marine debris is composed largely of plastics and may include cigarette tips, baby diapers, six-pack pills, beverage bottles and cans, tires, disposable syringes, plastic bags, bottle caps, fishing line and gear. Different types of debris are classified or can be classified into 7 groups: the plastic, metal, leather, glass, foam, clothes, and long life packages. So there are different sources as we discussed. So land-based sources which are thrown into the sea, washes into the sea, or discharged into the sea, like stormwater discharges, storm drains collect runoff water which is generated during heavy rains. So these drains directly discharge wastewater into nearby streams, rivers, or the ocean. Rubbish from the streets can be washed into storm drains and then discharged straight away to the ocean or to streams, rivers, which in turn carry the rubbish. Plastics and other pollutants to the ocean. So combined sewer overflows with stormwater along with stormwater can flow, which is untreated, and directly get discharged into nearby rivers or oceans and littering. Lot of beach goers maintain this litter in the coast and this will become very debris. The litter includes items such as food packing, beverage containers, and then also litter from inland areas can also become debris if it gets into the streams or rivers. This way, debris may result in rubbish left and debris by the workers in forestry, agriculture, construction, mining operations. Now, industrial activities may become very debris if they are improperly disposed of on the land or if they lost due to the transport, unloading and unloading at port facilities. So a well-known example is small plastic rigid pellets, about 2 to 6 mm in diameter, which are the raw materials for manufacture of plastic products. These pellets have been released into marine environment from accidental spillage in production and processing, transport and handling. Some are buried while others become suspended on sea. Their presence has been reported in the most of the world oceans and they are found even in more remote, non-industrialized areas in the southwest Pacific such as Tonga, Rarotonga and Fiji. Although plastic pellets are one of the least visible forms of plastic pollution, like microplastics, it is apparent that they have become ubiquitous in ocean waters, sediments on beaches, and rare ingested by marine wildlife. And apart from that, ocean-based sources like all types of boats and ships and offshore industrial platforms are potential sources of marine debris. The debris may originate from accidental loss, indiscriminate littering, or illegal disposal. It may be also due to result of waste management disposable practices that were carried out in the past. Ocean-based sources of marine debris can also include commercial fishing, recreational boaters, merchant, military, and research vessels, offshore oil and gas platforms and exploration. All these contribute to the ocean-based sources. So commercial fishermen generate marine debris when they fail to retrieve fishing gear or when they discard fishing gear or other rubbish overboard. Debris resulting from commercial shipping includes nets, lines, ropes, strapping bounds, bait boxes and bags, gill net or trawl floats, plus galley waste and household trash. And recreational boaters may deposit garbage overboard such as bags, food packaging and fishing gear. Merchant, military and research vessels from which rubbish may be accidentally released or blown into the water or may be deliberately thrown overboard. As large vessels with many crew members may carry supplies for several months, they generate solid waste daily, which may end up as marine debris if it is not secure and stored properly. And activities on oil and gas platforms may generate items which are deliberately or accidentally released into the marine environment, including hard hats, gloves, 55-gallon storage drums, survey materials, and personal waste. Undersea exploration and resource extraction also contribute to the marine debris. Several studies have demonstrated a positive correlation between marine debris accumulation on the beaches and rainfall, particularly when precipitation is strongly seasonal and river flows are greater. So the debris can be broadly divided into mega debris, macro debris, meso debris, and micro debris. Micro debris are consisting of particles of two main varieties, that is fragments broken from larger objects, resin pellets and powders. The basic thermoplastic industry feedstocks are difficult to trace. Plastics are synthetic polymers which are typically prepared by polymerization of monomers derived from the oil or gas. And the different types of plastics are usually made from these by addition of various chemical additives. There are currently some 200 different groups of plastics, each with numerous grades and varieties. The diversity of polymers and the versatility of their properties are used to make a vast array of products that bring medical and technological advances, energy savings, and numerous other societal benefits. But they are also cause of pollution and debris. The common polymers made of plastics are low density polyethylene, high density polyethylene, that is HDPE, propylene, and nylon. These are inexpensive, lightweight, strong, durable, and corrosion resistant, high thermal and electrical insulation properties. They low cost, excellent oxygen moisture barrier properties, bioinertness, and lightweight make them excellent packaging materials widely preferred. So plastic serves as transformed everyday life and usage, and global production of plastics is estimated at 225 million tons per year. Plastics are synthetic organic polymers. These are necessary to biodegradation and thus stay in the environment for a long period of time. Plastics are damaging to the environment for long, like plastic debris once these packaging level of production over the last few centuries. That's the basic component of fragments of manufacturing plastic products, including future plastic and pre-production plastic industrial pellets, plastic resin, unique sorting, the branching from manufacturing plants to plastic injection factories, and molded to consumer products. Sales of these pellets lost from the container ships, downgrade, and through other shipping and production jobs have been reported to be floating in the coastal surface waters, in the open ocean, and on the beaches throughout the world and in sediment. Plastics fragments in the environment are a consequence of photolytic mechanical and biological degradation. In the marine environment, plastics also fragment through the combined effects of wave action and abrasion from the sediment particles. Plastic debris on the beaches degrades more readily than plastic at sea because of higher solar radiation exposure and subsequent increased bulk temperature, whereas larger plastic pieces are often removed through active beach cleanups, composition, and degradation rates most often dictate the retention times of smaller plastic particles on the beaches. Degradation occurs faster in virgin pellets that contain no UV stabilizers compared to the plastic products. The removal of larger pieces of plastic debris from beaches before they were weathered enough to the surface embrittled can have considerable value in reducing the microplastics that end up in the ocean. So beach cleanup therefore can have an ecological benefit far beyond the aesthetic improvements of the beaches, and by reducing microplastics contributes towards the health of the marine food web. The physical characteristics of most microplastics show high aging resistance and minimum biodegradation. The eventual and exact time of biodegradation of plastics in the marine environment still remains unknown. And beaches, sandy shores are generally considered important sinks for floating waste, which after stranding generally becomes trapped in under sand or might be blown farther inland. The factors that determine the amount, type, and distribution of marine debris on beaches are complex and probably interdependent. They are both environmental determinants such as winds, currents, tides, river flows, and beach morphology, and socio-economic variables such as municipal infrastructure, that is collection and destination of solid waste, controlled urban drainage, beach use, social behavior, and level of environmental education among the local and visiting populations. So debris pollution can also cause aesthetic disturbances, thereby impacting tourism industries that depend on the public perceptions of clean beaches. There are numerous methods to survey beach litter depending on the type of litter being sampled. Surveying small areas of beach from vegetation to shoreline can bias results, particularly on beaches where litter tends to accumulate in specific area. So this can lead to lot of variations in the statistics. So apart from this, there are various other pollutants that are adding to the ocean debris and pollutants. So like this, a lot of pollutants are contributing to the pollution of ocean. So we need to take an action as half of the oceans are filled with the debris, and if we do not take any corrective action and collective action, so we will go beyond the restoration of the oceans, and it will permanently impact our ocean marine health and also will accelerate the climate change. There are various other aspects which can be dealt in detail. You paucity of time and also the magnitude of the topics that can be the intensity of the uh, pollution and also the variety of topics that can be dealt can be a variety of topics can be discussed, so which will consume a lot of time, so we will end up here and we will discuss it when our time permits. So finally, it's high time that we need to focus on these pollutants that are causing, impacting the coral reef and also the ocean ecosystems. And we also need to reduce the pollutants, especially the plastic, as most of the pollutants in the ocean are plastic. So this plastic and use has to be reduced and minimized so that whatever plastic we are using is finally ending up in the oceans. And as we can see, as half of the oceans are already filled with pollutants, and with this kind of usage, definitely it's going to soon be a vulnerable and more impacting on the life, human life, and also ocean. So thank you once again. If you have any queries, you can chat box or you can unmute yourself or raise your hand. There are various treaties, laws, and all other things which can be discussed, but due to time constraints, we are not taking up. If there are no queries, then conclude the session. So kindly fill up the feedback form that is being shared in the sandbox. It is mandatory for receiving your certificates. Certificates will be issued within 15 working days. You can download your certificate from the International Webinar Series website on the relevant webinar page. You can visit today's webinar page on the International Webinar Series website, and within 15 working days, your certificate will be updated. Thank you everyone for joining us. And before you leave the webinar, uh, kindly fill up the feedback form. So we thank all the participants on behalf of Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute and Center for Art Sciences and Wellbeing. Thank you for joining us. See you all tomorrow at the same time with a different topic.
critical.
Our relationship with the sea has grown increasingly demanding. Humanity's progress led to mounting pressures, and our effect on the ocean has become more and more pronounced. All the while, the ocean has continued to sustain us and require our actions.
But we can see now in its dire state the reality of what we've done. And so, the onus is on us, individually and collectively, to work together, to listen and to share our knowledge, to bridge barriers and to collaborate, to restore the ocean's vibrancy and to bring it new life.
Join us on June 8th for United Nations Day as we come together to shed light on and celebrate solutions, science, community, youth leadership, private sector engagement, and government collaboration, and to ignite collective action to revitalize the ocean and all it sustains.
Up to 20 million tons of plastic goes into the ocean every year. That's as much as 3 kilograms per person each year. Plastics make up roughly half of each person's contribution to ocean pollution. Fertilizers, manure, and untreated sewage pollute the ocean at a rate of 1.4 kilograms per person per year. This is off green life. Waste oil from vehicles and machines enters the ocean at a rate of 180 grams per person every year. And other pollutants, like mercury, are introduced to the ocean in small, devastating amounts. But this is not inevitable. We can reduce pollution by rethinking and modifying the way we produce and consume. We can reverse this trend and help reclaim the ocean for its rightful owners.
How can we know the current status, trends, and likely futures of our coral reefs with certainty? Prior to 1998, the global average hard coral cover on the world's coral reefs was high and stable. But a single mass coral bleaching event killed 8% of the world's coral. Coral cover recovered during the next decade, until a succession of large-scale bleaching events killed 14% of the world's coral. Coral reefs simply hadn't the time between bleaching events to recover. As a consequence, the global average cover of algae on the world's coral reefs has increased by 20%. Algal dominance reduces the ability of corals and the marine life they support to re-establish themselves. It's time to step up our efforts to protect and restore our coral reefs. To help communities, businesses, and governments conserve and manage our vital coral reefs, the Global Coral Reef Monitoring Network has released a new report examining the status and trends of the world's coral reefs. Several hundred scientists and organizations contributed to this report, which is based on a global dataset of almost 2 million observations from over 12,000 sites in 73 countries. Now, in the first global report since 2008, you can discover the status, trends, and likely futures of your coral reefs to help you make a positive difference. To learn more and read the report, visit www.gcrmn.net.
So see you all tomorrow. Take care.